Actual Fluency Podcast, episode 30 with Luca Lampariello.
Welcome to the Actual Fluency Podcast, the podcast that gives you the tools and inspiration to learn languages faster and more efficiently. And now your host, Chris Broholm.
All right, everyone, it's time for the big one. It's episode 30. It's yet another milestone for the Actual Fluency Podcast. And I just want to say thank you guys. Like, seriously, this podcast would not have happened without the following that you guys provide, the fans. You are the reason I'm doing these episodes, and I'm so excited to bring you a new episode every week. And this week is something truly special. Not only is it episode 30, which, many podcasts don't make it past episode 7, I believe, something I read some time ago. And secondly, I have one of the most amazing and incredible language learners in the entire world on the show today. And I'm talking, of course, of none other than Luca Lampariello. And if you've been in the language learning community for more than a day, you would definitely have heard of Luca. I first met Luca, well, I didn't meet him in real life, but I met him on YouTube a handful of years ago when I was kind of stuck in a rut and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I watched some of his videos on YouTube where he, spoke in several different languages, and he casually just, switched between them. And it was very impressive. And he also had lots of kind of tutorial style videos where he went over his way of kind of learning a language, or how to do this or how to do that. And although I wasn't really in a place I could say physically and also mentally to start learning languages on my own back then, it was definitely planting a seed in the back of my mind that this was something that I would really love to do. And it was really exciting to think about it. Sadly, it would take me some 5 or 6 years before definitely a handful of years before I would get into it. But this just shows you the power of of Luca that I'm having on today. And I got into a great interview with him. The challenge of interviewing really famous people in this industry is that they would have been interviewed tons of times before, and all the questions would have probably been answered. So every time I have people on who are pretty well known in the community, I always try to ask a little bit outside the box. I always try to think of questions that would elicit answers that are not just like, well, what's your favorite audio course, or how many hours do you study per day? That's not really that interesting. So what I got into with Luca is actually a lot of meta subjects, a lot of more, not how to learn a language, but how to structure your time. We got into a lot of time management, which was really cool. And we also got into the kind of the spiritual advantages of learning a language. Like, what do you actually gain out of it? What's the reason? And most importantly, I guess, what is the Polyglot Dream, which is the title of his blog. And I was curious to know what that meant for Luca. And maybe the Polyglot Dream is something for you as well. For me, we all have our different definitions, but Luca's definition was particularly cool, and I think you will enjoy it later in the interview. But before we move on to the interview, I just want to quickly say that my newest podcast bundle is finally ready for you guys to go and check out. And basically, the bundle is a collection of the first 25 episodes, and it's bundled up with a ton of bonus features, and some of the bonus features are exclusive to the bundle. And behind the scenes, I've recorded some special episodes, some special videos that shows you how I do the podcast behind the scenes. There's also videos of previous interviews that haven't been released anywhere. And there's also a bonus interview with Luca after we recorded this podcast interview. I asked him if he would say some extra stuff for the VIP guests, and he didn't mind. I mean, he's a very friendly guy. So we sat down and we talked about some really serious topics, some, mental benefits of learning languages. But basically, all this wonderful bundle is available, and it's a way for you guys to support the show, as well as getting a lot of, bonus features. It's kind of like buying a DVD where, you have the movie on one disc, and then you have the bonus features on another disc. And I personally love bonus features, and I hope that you will love the bonus features that I have created here for you in the Actual Fluency Podcast bundle. To check out the bundle, you simply go to actualfluency.com/bundle, and there will be a little video explaining what it is if you want to watch it. Otherwise, you just click the buy now link. And as a special offer, the specials keep coming, I want to offer the first 5 people who buy the bundle with the coupon code italki, ITALKI, you will get a 20% discount, and I will also throw in a italki voucher for a free lesson of your choice, up to $10. So that means that if you've been waiting to take advantage of italki to learn a new foreign language, I'll give you the first lesson basically. But this is for 5 people only, and you have to go to actualfluency.com/bundle, then click add to cart, and then once it's in the cart, you can apply the italki coupon, which will also shave $5 off the price. So, I really appreciate any feedback you might have for this. And as I said in the beginning, thank you for being part of the show. And I hope you enjoyed this interview with Luca Lampariello. All right. Well, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on to your seats. This episode is the big one. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Luca Lampariello onto the show. And although he requires no introduction, I think I'll give him a little one anyway. He speaks a ton of languages and has been a leading figure in the Polyglot community, teaching us how to learn languages just a little bit better every day. And he's also writing on his amazing blog, thepolyglotdream.com. Mr. Lampariello, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Chris, thank you for the lovely introduction.
Yeah, no problem. You deserve it, man. And you're back in Rome?
Yeah, I'm back in Rome. Oh. Very happy to be here. The weather is absolutely fantastic today. I'm going to go for a walk, and everything is just fantastic. How's the weather in Denmark? I always ask about the weather.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great conversation starter. It's sunny, unusually sunny, but it's a little bit windy, so
yeah,
don't go out.
It's kind of strange because I do remember that it was in Denmark it's like a month ago or something where we were together. Do you remember that you had these like rain showers all of a sudden, and it was kind of cold? How's the weather now? Like
it's warmer. Well, not generally, but today it's better than when you were here.
Wow, so I was not very lucky then. No. In August. Okay, gotcha. But hey, I still enjoyed the sky when it was clear. There were a couple of days when it was beautiful anyway, and I really like being in Denmark and in Sweden, as usual.
Awesome. Well, Luca, one of the biggest questions that I actually thought about when I was thinking of you, and obviously you get interviewed a lot, so it's actually difficult to, get some unique twists. But one of the questions that I've had for a while is, what is exactly your kind of idea or definition of the Polyglot Dream, which is the name of your blog?
Interesting question. Nobody had ever asked me that question before.
There you go.
Well, the Polyglot Dream, for me, the Polyglot Dream means to live a fantastic life through languages. Now, one might say that you don't need to speak multiple languages to have a fantastic life. That's also true. But I believe that the more languages you speak and the broader your horizons are in life, because you understand people better, you understand cultures, you understand where you stand. A lot of people take for granted that they live in a unique world, and for example, Italians, they live in Italy and they think that a lot of people think like them. Well, it's absolutely not the case. I believe that if you speak multiple languages, you might live multiple lives at the same time. This is the Polyglot Dream, living multiple lives in just one body in one life. Doesn't it sound cool?
Wow, yeah, it does sound cool. And when did you come up with that kind of? It's a kind of a grand vision, isn't it? Did you have that at the beginning of your language learning kind of journey, or did that come as you were kind of going through it?
I gotta tell you the truth. My life, my vision about life, my vision about how to learn languages, how to acquire languages, how to talk to people has changed, has been evolving, and it still is evolving in the last 10 or 20 years, because I've been learning languages for 20 years. So I didn't have this idea at the beginning, but the more I've been delving into languages, into different cultures, into traveling, I've been finding out more and more exhilarating aspects of being multilingual. It's simply cool to be multilingual. You can speak. I was thinking about it when I was in Denmark. You can speak English to a lot of people. You can use English to communicate with Scandinavians, but speaking Swedish, this is just one example, opens a lot of doors. You understand how people think, and through Swedish you can understand a lot about Denmark, about Danish in a way. Obviously, Danish and Swedish and Norwegian are different languages, but at the same time, they belong to a common culture. This might sound trivial, but if you can speak the language, one of the local languages, then you have amazing access to a different way of seeing the world. But you really understand it. It's not just, okay, I read a touristic guide about Scandinavia, and now I understand. No, if you speak the language, Scandinavians themselves will talk differently to you, and probably they will talk about certain things that you would normally not talk about to foreigners. One glaring example of this is snusa. Old people, a lot of people in Sweden snusar. I don't know if you say that like that in life.
Yeah, it's about the same. It's not very popular in Denmark though, and we kind of make fun of the Swedes for it. But yeah, we know what it is.
But you know what it is. So, for example, if you say, I still remember I was watching a Swedish movie when I still couldn't speak Swedish, and I saw these guys putting these things under their gums and stuff. What's going on? I was okay. Now this is so for snusa, for people who don't know, snusa is just a tobacco thing that you put in your mouth in order not to smoke, because it's so cold in Scandinavia that when you have to smoke a cigarette, the best solution is just to stay inside and not smoke it. So you put this thing, a tobacco thing, under your in your mouth, so to say, under your gums. But this is just one example to say, and you can have a conversation about snusa, and you can understand, this is very special of Scandinavia. Now you might say, it's just about smoking, but there are tiny little things that you can discuss in Swedish if you know Swedish, and it does make a difference in the way you perceive the culture, and also the way you enjoy the Scandinavian culture once you're there. This is my idea. This is the reason why I call it the Polyglot Dream.
Awesome. And I guess this kind of ties back to that famous Mandela quote that keeps being tossed around all the time about, if you know a man's language, you can connect to his soul, his heart, not just his, understanding brain.
Absolutely. I love the man, and I love his quote.
It has to be done, right? You can't just, that's kind of the little, I guess, caveat we have to put in, that if you haven't started learning that second language or a new language and just used it, you don't really know what we're discussing right now. You kind of have to do it yourself, even though they know what you stand for and what you've accomplished and stuff. Of course, they believe you, but it's something you have to try for yourself, isn't it?
Well, to fully understand the scope, to fully understand how it feels to speak a foreign language to a certain level and embrace a culture, you have to live it, of course. That's the reason why I say the Polyglot Dream. The Polyglot Dream is a dream is something to be fulfilled. And I think that in order to really understand it, you have to live it, absolutely. So, and it's not a dream, actually. It's like Polyglot Dream is more like a vision. It's within reach. Everybody can do that. And now you might say, the Polyglot's saying online that everything is easy and you can do it too. It's actually true that you can do it too. If you know how to do it with the internet. I was thinking last week, I was thinking that the internet is really a treasure trove for a polyglot, but also for a person who wants to learn a lot of languages. You can do pretty much everything if you know how to organize your time and how to search for sensible, reliable information on the internet. So it's not like 30 years ago where you didn't have anything. You had to go to the library and spend a lot of money for a book with cassettes. Now you can really do anything, and it's also about traveling. You can travel to Scandinavia for, if you're lucky, you can find like €30 and you can go to Scandinavia. You can talk to a friend of yours who can host you. Everything has become so much easier. So why not take advantage of a world that really offers language learners a lot of possibilities.
Exactly. And do you feel that the community, we keep referring to this community, but what I mean is the people online are gathering in communities of language learners, of aspiring polyglots. Do you feel that this growth in this community feeling is also because of the internet? It's becoming easier and it's becoming more popular, or do you think it's kind of just like a natural development of society itself?
I think it's a development of society, but I think first and foremost it's about the internet. It's like posting everybody can post a video saying, "Hi, I speak a few languages," and then another person will send him or her a message because they found his or her video interesting and say, "Hey, let's team up. You want to have a chat on Skype?" And then these two people will contact another one, 3, 4, 5, and that's how it grows. And then all of a sudden somebody comes up with the idea of creating a conference about it, or a gathering like the one that happened in Berlin, and 200 people show up. What was amazing about Berlin is that you just realize you find yourself in a room full of these people who speak a lot of languages, are extremely passionate, and you tell yourself, wow, actually I thought I was the only loner learning languages, but actually there's a lot of geeks like me. I just call it geeks, but in reality it's just passionate people who are very passionate about what they're doing, languages. And there's a ton of people like that in the world. So the internet gives us this possibility of finding out about people, while in the 80s, or when the internet didn't exist, we were not conscious that the world was full of these people. It's just that we didn't know about it. The internet just makes us more conscious of things happening in life, and of some things that are there but that we don't see.
Right. I think that's a perfect. It's so beautiful, isn't it? And it seems like the world in general is becoming more tolerable as well, and more open to foreign kind of cultures, and trying out different things, and being more, I guess, just accepting that people are different. It's not you don't live in your own country and just have your own mindset. You get inputs from everywhere.
Well, let me put it this way. The internet is, and this goes for language learning as well, the internet is just an instrument. It can be used for good purposes or for disastrous purposes, for bad purposes, for evil purposes. Take, for example, for language learning, it's an amazing instrument, but it's also used to spawn and to spread evil. Like, for example, this has been happening, recently. Recently, and it's been happening since the internet was born. So it's up to us to use the internet in a good way or in a bad way. You can, insofar as language learning is concerned, you can decide if you can use your time to, for example, search for some resources and then use them, or you can decide to spend your time talking about internet polyglots in some forums. It's totally up to you. What do you do with the internet? My idea is that the most important piece of advice that I can give to people who want to learn languages is learn how to use the internet and learn how to gather material. That's the first point. Then you will learn how to use them,
Exactly. Do you think that the internet is kind of like a more easy or effective way of learning languages, or are we developing new and unique methods because of the internet?
It's both. I still believe that I used to learn languages effectively even when the internet was not around. What I believe in every time I talk about something is a combination of things is what really makes a difference. Now, if we think back about, for example, famous polyglots in Mezzofanti comes to mind. He didn't have the internet, and yet he learned so many languages. So it doesn't mean that if you don't have the internet, you're screwed, so to say. Sorry for the bad word. But at the same time, I believe that now that we have the internet, we have to make good use of it. Now, the internet is an amazing tool, but you have to remind yourself, Chris, and we all have to remind ourselves that the internet is also a big waste of time if we don't use it correctly. Yeah. Imagine the amount of hours that you or me or anybody else has spent on YouTube, for example. I don't know if it happened to you, but it did happen to me that I spent 5 hours watching YouTube videos, one after the other. You see the column there and you say, okay, let's click on this. This looks interesting. And then you tell yourself, I spend the whole day watching YouTube videos. This is absolutely not good. You feel useless in this. So it's about deciding, how you're going to use the internet.
What can people do in kind of practical terms, like to make sure that they actually don't fall into those traps? Because I can definitely relate to that. You see you see an actually useful video, like something you want to know about, and then there's like the related about a cat or Steve Jobs dying, or you just keep going. What is it that in our minds that we have to tell ourselves that, or do we structure our time on the internet? What would you do practically in this case?
Okay, well, first, the reason why you act that way and I act that way is simply because the internet is addictive. You know, you can do whatever you want. So it's like a bear in a room full of honey. You know, it just could spend hours and hours eating the honey. What I would do is to go on the internet with a precise purpose and with a set time. Let's suppose that you're learning Russian, or you are learning Russian. I think.
Exactly, yeah.
So tell yourself you can write it on the calendar at 11:30. You're going to 9:30. Okay. Well, I'm not a morning person, but you might wake up at 8. Let's say at 8. You wake up at 8 and you tell yourself, you're going to have breakfast, and after that, from 8:30 to 9, I have the precise purpose. I'd have the precise goal to watch a YouTube video or do something with the internet. 30 minutes, collect material, whatever you want to, whatever it is. Okay, has to be precise. So my idea is like set goals and set a time. I want to use the internet from 9 to 9:30 because of this. Because if you turn on the computer without thinking, then that's the moment it all goes downhill. From 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and say, oh, it's time to eat. Then you watch other couple of videos, and then the day that the sun has gone down and you feel like an idiot.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true. I'm just kind of thinking back to the days where that has happened. That exact thing has happened.
It happened to all of us, you know. This is like learning to ride a bicycle or whatever with the internet. You have to go through these things to understand that where you're standing and what you want to do with the internet. And sometimes, even if I'm conscious of the fact that it can be a big waste of time, sometimes, you know, I indulge in it. I just happen to spend time with it and saying, okay, I've just started watching this and I will watch it till the end, then I'll watch something else. It does happen. You don't have to feel that guilty. If you do it on a daily basis, it can get dangerous, because what really counts if you want to be a successful person is your routine. If your routine is stained with, YouTube, I'm not just talking about YouTube because I've been talking about YouTube, but there's a ton of distractions out there.
Yeah, Facebook, Reddit, Twitter.
Facebook is an email, Reddit, Twitter, you name it, you know, it's full of obstacles there. It's just, I think that if a person really knows how to use their time accordingly and how to use the internet just to search for information that they want, obviously, once again, you can spend some time watching a documentary. Why not? Or something else that caught the eye while you were searching for something else. But it doesn't have to be the rule. Right. It has to be the exception.
And it shouldn't preferably be in the study time or the serious time.
Exactly. And if you have a study time, if it's set in stone, so to say, if you decide, okay, this week I'm going to have this time scheduled, then you're going to stick to it. Then the internet, you have to know what you. But my suggestion is, set some goals and then set a time schedule for the week that you're going to follow, more or less. Because without a time schedule, without a goal, you're just like a boat in the middle of the ocean and in the middle of a storm. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's fantastic, actually. And I think it's one of those meta concepts that we don't really get to talk about a lot, because a lot of the focus in the language learning is about your methods and particular books or what to do in the time. But actually talking about kind of spending your time in the first place, I think is something that's often overlooked. So I'm glad you brought this up.
Well, time management is everything. As I always say, it's not just what you do and how you do it counts, but when you do it counts as much as the other two. So you have to organize your time like, okay, I know I have the know-how, I know what to do. Now it's time to organize a schedule. Without a schedule, you wake up, you can spend like 2 hours in Russian because you're like enthusiastic that day, but then the other day you spend the whole day on YouTube and you feel down or you feel guilty because you spend the whole day doing practically nothing for your Russian. So if you tell yourself, okay, 1 hour Russian today, 1 hour Russian tomorrow, etc., it's going to do much better. What really counts in language learning, what really counts is that you do things every single day, maybe even 10 minutes. But if you keep at it, and this is actually the most difficult thing for a lot of language learners, including myself recently, it's difficult to start to study or to read or to learn every single day, you know?
But that's kind of what is giving the huge results in the end, is the consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, consistency is, I think that if you take a look at successful people, all of them share this feature. They are consistent, they're disciplined. Sports, language learning, you name it. They are consistent. They do it every day.
Right.
And that's what really counts.
Well, fantastic. And of course, you've been teaching as well a lot over the years. Have you seen any differences in what the students have trouble with, or has it been kind of consistent?
Absolutely. I've seen, well, I wouldn't talk about teaching. It's more training. I train people to, I give them the know-how. They want to know, what I think you approach people because if they know something you don't, you see value in it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that the reason people approach me is not because they want to know exactly my method, the so-called Luca method. It's because they want to know, most of them want to know how to study, that's true, but also how to organize their time schedule. And I think the difficulty nowadays is not so much about the know-how. Yeah, obviously some people don't know, have no clue as how do I approach a language, but it's not difficult to train them and make them understand how to do that. The problem is how to incorporate this into their routine. So you have to find an organic view of their lives where language learning just plays a role, but it's in modern times. I think it's very important to understand what you can do with your time, with your energy. It's not just about a matter of time. I always insist that time and energy are just one thing. You will notice that when you're learning a language such as Russian, which is a very difficult language, at the beginning, it's an effort. You make a lot of effort to understand. While if you've been learning that language for 5 years, it becomes second nature. You don't spend that much. You can spend a lot of time, but with little energy. At the beginning, it's a lot of energy that you have to invest, and time. You cannot. If you try to spend 10 hours a day, you're going to be exhausted at the end of the day. While at the end, when you're advanced, you can be speaking, for example, with English. In your case, or in my case, you can be speaking English the whole day. You don't make any effort. It has become automatic. So this is another factor. People talk about know-how. People talk about time, but also the energy and how to organize, how to distribute that effort is also paramount in language learning.
So you would actually be more of a language coach than you could say you're teaching people how to learn, but that would be more of a coach, I guess.
This is how I define myself. I'm not a language teacher. I'm a language coach. It's different. Right. And there's even I found recently a page, a very interesting one. I don't remember exactly the thread, but I still remember that you had 10 points why a language coach is different from a language teacher. And I was nodding all the time saying, yeah, she nailed it. And the author said, she nailed it. These are exactly the differences between a language coach and a language teacher. I believe and I abide by the principle that you cannot teach somebody a language. Right. You can lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink, as they say, right? So nobody can teach you a language. You have to learn it by yourself. I can give you motivation. I can tell you, if you do these things, if you organize your time correctly, accordingly, you're going to succeed. But I cannot force them. They have to find motivation to learn themselves, because we can chat once a week. We can have a training session once, maybe even twice a week. But what they do with the rest of their time is what really makes a difference in the short and in the long run.
Right. You can't just throw Russian vocabulary at me and expect it to stick.
No, especially the vocabulary. I don't know if you're using a paper vocabulary. I would avoid that by all means, because it slows you down. Right. I would use an online dictionary, even if I still like paper. You can call me old-fashioned, but I like reading stuff on paper. But in the case of dictionary, you have to think that the main goal is to search for words, and an online dictionary is by far faster than one made of paper.
Even if you're quite fast at looking up a word, it's seconds each time that just add up to a lot of minutes, a lot of hours, and in the long run.
Exactly. And imagine if you had to look for a word in Japanese or Chinese, and you have to go by traits. You know how that search is very, very different than a normal search with a Latin alphabet. It might take even 15 minutes if you don't know how to do it. You know, you can imagine 15 minutes nowadays that everything is faster, and 15 minutes is like, it's too much. You know, even one minute would be too much. You have to be fast. In searching for words, you have to be fast. In digesting, it might take some time, but some processes, that's where the internet plays a huge role. You can be much faster, and obviously this is a big plus for language learners around the world.
Yeah, exactly. And you can get more definitions. So if you look up a word in a dictionary, it might just give you the English translation on some of the words, but if that might not make you understand exactly the extent of the word. But if you look it up online, they usually have a lot of space, because you know you can print as many words on the internet as you want. You're not cutting down more trees, so that's another plus, right?
Well, the trees are going to be happy about that, but it's not just the trees that are going to be happy. It's also the fact that if you find, this is another I think important piece of advice: find yourself a dictionary in which you have, for example, not only the corresponding meaning of the word in a given language, but also some examples, because building a constellation of elements around the word, meaning you just don't find the meaning of the word, but you also find a couple of examples or synonyms or things, or like the way that word is used in different contexts is absolutely key to make it remembered, to make it stick to your long-term memory. Our long-term memory works like a big network, where the more elements you have around a single element, the more likely it is to stick or to be remembered or to be retrieved when you need it. You know, this is exactly how our language, our native tongue works. Even people who are supposed to have a bad memory, they speak their language well, because it's a dynamic process. While they're talking, words fall into sentences that they're uttering, and they're getting out of their mouths automatically. This is what happens when you speak a language well, a foreign language well, or when you speak your own native tongue very well. You don't think about words, they just come to you. This is because the memory and the way our memory system is organized by associations, it's like a network, like a spider web, I would call it.
Exactly.
And if you learn words accordingly, instead of learning just lists of words without a context, you learn how to put them in the bigger picture. That's when your learning is gonna take off, and you're going to remember more and more words. I don't believe people saying that that either you have a good memory or you have a bad one. If you had a very bad memory, I'm pretty sure you will not be able to speak your own native tongue. Right. So up to a certain level, it's true that there are individual differences. Some people speak faster, some people remember things or phases better. There is some difference, but I'm positive about the fact that everybody can become multilingual. And the reason why is because we have a learning machine installed in our skull. Very efficient one. It's only when we don't learn that fast is because we're not giving our brain the right instructions.
Right. And what would be a quick what's the biggest small thing anyone could do if they're using Anki Memrise or any kind of vocabulary help? What's the biggest thing they could do to boost it by tons? Is that just using that reference, that mental reference? Well,
the best thing, some people say you should build, this might sound contradictory, you can build some, you can think about ideas, or you can think about some strange images to associate with that word, or some strange situations. I think you're burdening your memory with that. What makes it strong, what makes remembering a given word, the process, what makes it strong in your head is when it becomes part of your life, when it becomes part of your experience, or when emotions are involved. If you use that word, that expression, for some reason, if you find a way to use it on your daily life, and there are countless ways in which you can do that, then it becomes second nature. The reason why in Russian, for example, I remember things better is because for personal reasons, I've been learning Russian. I've been speaking Russian on a daily basis. and for a number of reasons. And the things that really were, I had a really struggle remembering 3-4 years ago. Now they're absolutely, I told myself, how could I not memorize these things? It's just because I incorporated Russian into my daily routine. And this is like to communicate with other human beings, or for personal reasons, for personal needs. Like I'm reading, for example, a book about World War II. So all these words that were difficult to memorize at the beginning are much easier because I've been emotionally involved with Operation Typhoon, all the things that happened. Hitler, for example, invaded Russia. All these words are not just barren words that you find out there and you want to remember for the sake of expanding your vocabulary. These are words that are part of an experience that I'm living, with all these images of, even morbid images of a war, of the war that happened 70 years ago. To me, it is relevant because I'm very passionate about history and above all about World War II. And that's the reason why these words are sticking in a much easier way. They have become part of my life, so to say.
Amazing. And to those who are starting out in a language, obviously you can't read history books in the target language just yet. Would you just say then, well, try to use sentences with it and try to get, talking on a Facebook chat or Skype group or whatever? Would that be a good alternative for beginners?
It is a double process. It is a double step process. First, you have to read it in a certain way. It is not just the things that you read. Obviously, you have to read things that interest you, but it's how you read it. If you're passionate, if you're reading in a certain way, things will stick. If you read it just for the sake of reading another book, they're not going to stick first. And then you can find a way to use them in real life, not necessarily with other human beings. You can write something about today to yourself, maybe have it corrected. You can write, today I really want to talk about, you can write a list of these words that you have learned or you've seen on the book, and then you want to write something about it. Today let's suppose that I learned 10 words. I found 10 words of military origin, because we're talking about the war. Then you will write something about, I read this interesting chapter in which Hitler attacks Russia, and you have this advance of soldiers and people who are hurt or dead, and you're using these words. Okay, I'm sorry for the morbid example, but this is strong. It doesn't have to be, everything doesn't have to be perfect and nice. It can be things that interest you and even shock you in a way, but they have to be strong feelings towards what you're learning. This is what counts, and the way you do it, the way you see these things, the way you read them first, and then the way you talk about them first, not to another human being necessarily, but also to yourself, does count in the way these words get set in stone, so to say. They get inside your memory and they stay there.
Yeah. Wow, man, I'm so my brain is spinning from this.
You're gonna think about it for the next week.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Time has been flying as always, and I just want to thank you so much for taking the time. And I think we covered a lot of interesting topics that I don't get to cover too often. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, and also for hanging out in Copenhagen. That was a ton of fun.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the time in Copenhagen. I think I'll be back soon. Maybe not in winter, because I think it might be a little bit cold, but possibly next year, because I really like Copenhagen, and we can hang around and talk about languages and stuff. I might even I might have a smattering of Danish by that time, but like the other time, we can simply speak, me in Swedish and you answering in Danish or in English.
That works. All right.
Okay. Cool.
Listening to the Actual Fluency Podcast. For more information, be sure to check out actualfluency.com. Until next time, enjoy learning and have a great day.